Hi, my name's Debs Hollingsworth and I'm a SENDCo. I've been hosting a series of events in my local area for the families and parents and carers and friends of people with young people, children with special educational needs and disabilities, to answer some questions and help out in what can sometimes be quite a complex journey. So I thought I'd narrate my presentations and put them online via my website to see if I can reach and help more people. You can see on the screen now the format that the evenings have taken. So a little welcome and meet your host. Then I give a short presentation, about 30 to 45 minutes, and that's what I'm narrating here. And then we have a question and answer session. This has all been done in conjunction with Hyams Park Radio, HSpark, www.hspark.co.uk, and they are going to be broadcasting, or they have broadcast, these presentations. This is the first presentation, and so it is a general overview of SEND, the local and national context. I did give a little introduction to myself. I'm a SENDCo and a teacher of 20 years experience. I have been working in primary, in secondary and in special school contexts, and so I'm quite an experienced senior and middle leader. I have also been through my own journey with my children. I've got two gorgeous children, and for one of them in particular I have had to access additional support from the school and from services, and I am actually sharing that journey of SEND parents in that my daughter is caught up in the very long waiting lists for some CAMHS intervention. In this presentation, I'm going to cover the local and national context. When I talk about local, I am based in Waltham Forest. So, but hopefully most of what I'm saying in this presentation is actually applicable throughout the whole of England. I'm going to then go on to the role of the SEND coordinator, SENDCo, in schools, and then I'm going to talk about identifying and supporting children with SEND in education generally and what families can or should expect. A look at the national context for SEND in England. You can see on your screen there figures that are taken from the government data collection in January 2023 via the census, in figures that were published in June 2023. And in terms of SEND, there are two categories of information in terms of total figures that are collated by the government, and they are the number of children who have special educational needs without an education, health and care plan, and also those with an EHCP, Education, Health and Care Plan. The children without, we are what we call K-coded. That is a letter that is assigned in our internal data collection software. And interesting fun fact, it doesn't stand for anything. It's not an acronym. The letter K was assigned simply because it was not used in any other coding in education at that time. So we sometimes internally we might call them the K-coded children, but they're children who have SEND support. I believe that the figures might be slightly anomalous for those, in that it is up to a SENDCo in most schools who is on and who isn't on their register. And SENDCos don't always agree about children who need to be on the register. We'll come to that. So 13% of children are registered as having special educational needs and disabilities without an education, health and care plan. That is 1 million, almost 1,120,000 children. So it's a lot of children navigating the systems. Beyond that, there are children who have an education, health and care plan. Now, for an education, health and care plan to be granted, there is a long process involving the local authority and psychologists and other professionals. So children who have a education, health and care plan have the most complex needs in the country. including some of the most complex needs in the world, of course, because of our excellent healthcare. And there is a process which means that there is some moderation and agreement of the level of need that is, and it is a very high level of need. And there are 4.3% of children who are within that category, and that includes England's special schools and hospital schools, etc., and alternative provision. So it is children with the highest level of need, and that figure accounts for almost 390,000 children. So a total of over 17% of children in England's schools are on the SEND register, and that is a combined total of 1.5 million children. The most common reason for a child to have an education, health and care plan agreed by the local authority is autism, closely followed by speech, language and communication needs and social, emotional, mental health. For children on the SEND register without an EHCP, we have speech, language and communication needs, social, emotional, mental health and moderate learning difficulties. Data collection and reporting is quite interesting. In terms of the census, there are 12 categories of need that are possible for us to input, and they follow a medical and a diagnosis-based model. However, the code of practice, the SEND code of practice, which is the SENDCo's Bible, if you like, categorises SEND into 4 broad areas of need: communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional, mental health, physical and or sensory needs. There is, of course, some crossover there, for example, the SEMH. However, autism is a distinct category for data collection for the census, which is government reported, but when we talk about it in terms of our practice in schools, we have to categorise that according to the SEND code of practice. It says children with autism are likely to have particular difficulties with social interaction, and therefore it is categorised as communication and interaction. And yet some children who have autism might actually struggle more with their cognition and learning, or their social, emotional, mental health, or their sensory processing. So just a little interesting anomaly there. But in terms of the key question for parents and carers for SENDCo, should a child be on the SEND register? The answer to that is in the SEND code of practice. It is quite clear, and it says a child should be on the SEND register if they are requiring support that is different from or additional to their peers. So if they're getting extra help, they're on the SEND register. Some children have a diagnosis but do not require any kind of reasonable adjustments in school, and they do not need to be on the register, although this is a much debated topic in SENDCo circles. Bit contentious. So what national policy developments have there been recently? Well, in 2023, the government published the SEND and Alternative Provision Plan. The executive summary at the beginning states, it is time to deliver a more dignified experience for children and young people with SEND and to restore families' confidence in the system. It does therefore acknowledge, and it acknowledges throughout, that the system is currently not working, not serving families, it is difficult to navigate, it is adversarial, it needs reform. This policy document promises systemic transformation and generational change for a more inclusive system. It also promised new evidence-based national standards to set out clear expectations of the types of support that should be ordinarily available in mainstream settings. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Really does. And I'm looking forward to seeing how well this is going to be implemented. if at all, in fact. The mission, it says, is to fulfil children's potential, to build parents' trust, and to provide financial sustainability. And it is certainly true that it's in the news all the time that council budgets, local authority budgets are absolutely under the hammer. Many are declaring themselves effectively bankrupt. And unfortunately, sadly, and wrongly, SEND is often cited as a reason for a local authority not being able to maintain its budget. How you would fix this, put together this dual or this mission to both drive up standards and improve the systems whilst cutting costs ultimately to provide sustainable financial footing remains to be seen. So it's also important to notice that this is a policy document. The proposed changes are to be made within existing legal frameworks, and there is no current proposal to actually review the underlying legislation prior to 2025. So we've got the underlying legislation being the Equalities Act 2010, the Children's and Families Act 2014, and various others, as well as, and also the statutory guidance, which is the SEND Code of Practice. However, there is, of course, a general election due to be held this very year, and many pundits do predict a change of government, and currently we are awaiting a formal response. Labour have not responded to the SEND and AP improvement plan formally. So whether in fact any of the improvements will be delivered honestly does really remain to be seen. And there are also many people who are quite clear on the fact that in fact that the SEND alternative provision improvement plan cannot actually be delivered under the existing legislation. Over half of local authorities nationally are now signed up to one of two central government initiatives. These are cost-cutting measures based on the fact that many local authorities have a spending deficit. They are called Operation Safety Valve, which is for local authorities that have the highest level of deficit or delivering better value. The contracts are signed and published on the government's website, and they cover 5 to 7 years. So financial implications and operational processes are more long-ranging than that scheduled general election this year. They have 4 pillars on which they focus. They are early intervention, increased SEN support to reduce the number of referrals for EHCPs, reviewing EHCP procedures and thresholds, and culture change and work with school leaders. In my local authority, I'm currently going through this, so they're conducting a banding audit of all of their education, health and care plans. And I'm exceptionally dubious of both the way that it's being implemented. For example, they are looking not at section F, which is provision, but at section B, which is need. Now, that's a little bit technical and not everyone's going to understand, but I feel that quite strongly that what they're doing is actually slightly unlawful, possibly, maybe. But we will wait and see, because certainly I'm not going to be the one who legally challenges them. In theory, I think it would be great if we could get early intervention and increased SEN support. In practice, actually, the local authorities cannot possibly deliver that because they're not even keeping pace with what they've got going on, and the law that underpins all of this is not changing. So the education, health and care plans are still to be honoured as they are legally binding documents. So it's all a little bit of an anomaly, and we will have to wait and see what happens. I work in a local authority neighbouring to that in which I live. I live in Waltham Forest, and I gave this presentation originally at a parents' meeting in Waltham Forest. We can see that Waltham Forest is not one of the local authorities that is currently invited to sign up to one of these contracts. From my research into Waltham Forest finances, they do have a deficit, but not yet any proposed intervention. I've also put on the slide there a graphic that I've actually borrowed from Special Needs Jungle, and particularly somebody called Matt Kia. And he's very knowledgeable. I learn a lot from him, and I thought that graphic was really, really helpful. Sticking with Waltham Forest, we'll have a quick look at their local area SEND inspections conducted by Ofsted. Ofsted don't only inspect schools, they also look at broader services in local areas. And with Waltham Forest in 2017, Ofsted issued a written statement of action which identified significant areas of weakness in local area practice. This was issued jointly to both health and education, which suggested that greater partnership working was required between those two bodies. And then a revisit in 2019 states that inspectors are of the opinion that the local authority has made sufficient progress to improve each of the serious weaknesses identified. Therefore, we can see that between 2017 and 2019, there was definitely a trend of improvement. However, whether that has been maintained and sustained, now we are, what, 4.5 years later. So whether that's been sustained, what they would find now, we remain to be seen. It remains to be seen. So in terms of national context, there are some additional considerations. SEND budgets nationally are being reduced with a need for all local authorities to balance the books. However, it doesn't change the number of children who need support in education, and it's being done under current legislation. And there is a crisis in special school capacity, as well as a national shortage of educational psychologists, a national shortage of speech and language therapists, etc. School budgets are under pressure. Recently, there were teacher pay rises of 6.5%. The central government is only funding 3% of that. So that means that's quite a lot of money coming out of existing school budgets, which will result in cuts to other areas of education within each school. School funding is increasing, but it's not increasing at the pace of the inflation, the cost of living increases, and actual school costs. Furthermore, there was a funding error announced by the government late in 2023, the impact of which is that, owing to a wrongly calculated formula, head teachers will have less in their money pots come September 2024 than they had expected. There is a teacher recruitment and retention crisis, which impacts, the quality of teaching in some instances. And there is also a very real challenge in recruiting teaching assistants, particularly as some other more commercial areas such as supermarkets have managed to put up their basic pay, and we have not kept pace. Thanks for watching the first part of this presentation, SEND, the national context. If you are interested and enjoying what you're seeing and learning something, then please do have a look at the other videos in this series. The role of the SEND coordinator or SENDCo in schools, identifying and supporting children with SEND in education, what can families expect, education, health and care plans, does my child need one, and diagnostic decisions and pathways. Hopefully there will be some more to follow too. So do get in touch if you want to leave comments or feedback. And my email address is info@sendexpertise.co.uk if you want to give me some, ask me a question, or get in touch. All right, thanks very much for watching.